Welcome, Silver and Blackcast fans. It's your brother Marquise here with a mini special episode for our new series, The Raider Rankings. Today, we're going to focus on the greatest defensive team of all time. I'm not talking about the 85 Bears. Who cares about the 2001 Ravens? We're talking about the greatest collection of football players on the defensive side of the ball that you have ever seen. Because we all know when it comes to the history of great players, no one creates a collection of players like our Oakland / LA / back to Oakland / Las Vegas Raiders. So smash that like and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen, because we could love your support and we want to continue to grow this content for you, our fans, and for the greatest fan base in NFL history, the Silver and Black Las Vegas Raiders. So welcome to Silver and Blackcast. Let's get it. All right, guys. So let's get this thing started. We're going to start this puppy off with the defensive end because as we know, everything starts in the trenches. So our first gentleman did not make the cut. He is our first alternate at defensive end. My man, one of my favorite Raiders of all time, current Raider, Maxx Crosby. Yeah, and I know some of you guys may be asking myself, how can Maxx Crosby not be on the all-time greatest Raiders list? Well, I'm trying not to be a victim of the moment. I'm trying not to be a prisoner to what we see every day, see out there every Sunday. We know Maxx Crosby is terrific. He's played 6 seasons, got 60 sacks, 9 forced fumbles, 237 pressures. That's absurd. And he's already been a 4-time Pro Bowler, 2 times second team all AP, but he's not quite there yet on his list. I still think he's got to make a jump. He's got to make that leap. He's got to make more game-changing plays to make this list, to make this defensive squad, ladies and gentlemen. He's got to force more fumbles. He's got to make more, get more sacks. He's got to just make a bigger impact. And I know that's asking a lot for a guy who is our franchise player, a guy who's on his way to getting a gold jacket. But we demand that much out of him, and he demands more out of himself. So for right now, he is an alternate. So let's take some time and talk about who is on our list at defensive end. And these two gentlemen are our GOATs, Howie Long, the Hall of Famer, and Greg Townsend. Those are our 2 starting defensive ends on the greatest defensive Raider football team. Let's start with Howie Long. Everyone knows Howie. Hall of Famer, played for the Raiders for 12 years. Was almost actually the only player to retire, go into the Hall of Fame, and come back and play. Could you imagine being a living Hall of Famer playing currently? That would be amazing. Al Davis almost talked him into it. Unfortunately, he decided against it. But he did end his Raider career with 91.5 sacks. He's an 8-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-time All-Pro, 1-time second-team All-Pro, and a 1-time Super Bowl champ. With that a resume, how can he not make the list? Now let's talk to his Batman, his Robin to his Batman, Mr. Greg Townsend. Now, Greg Townsend should be in the Hall of Fame. He should get more credit. Unfortunately, he doesn't get that publicity. Partially probably because he played next to Howie Long. And Howie Long, the intention hog he is, stole all the limelight. But Greg Townsend is a great player in his own right. It's not Howie Long who leads the Raiders in sacks. It's Greg Townsend, the leading sacker in Raider history with 109.5 sacks. Now, shockingly, with 109 sacks in 13 years, he's only made the Pro Bowl twice. And that's why he hasn't made the Hall of Fame. He's a 2-time second-team All-Pro and a 1-time Super Bowl champ. Greg Townsend, another great resume. Let's move on to our defensive tackles. Now, our alternate defensive tackle, who's not going to make this list, might be a little controversial. Mr. Richard Seymour. Richard Seymour, he gets a little bit of a bad rap, I think, sometimes to Raider Nation. I think most people consider him a Patriot, and he is, but he doesn't own a partial ownership in New England. He does with the Raiders. He's not on the New England's board to try to help them hire coaches. He is with the Raiders. So while most of his success might have happened with New England, and that's part of the reason why he's on as an alternate, because he had so much success in New England, let's not forget the 4 great years he had in Oakland. In those 4 seasons as a defensive tackle, he had 19 sacks, 2 Pro Bowlers, and he was on the second team All-Pro. Not bad for someone you traded a first-round pick for in the later stages of his career. Now, we talked about our alternate. Let's talk about the guys who made the cut. The 2 defensive tackles that will bowl their necks up and stop the run and get to the quarterback. That's Chester McGlockton and Darrell Russell. Those 2 guys were monsters. Rest in peace to both of them. Now, let's start with my man, Chester McGlockton. This guy was only a Raider for 6 years at defensive tackle. And in those 6 years, he had 39 and a half sacks at 340 pounds. 39 and a half sacks. Wrap your mind around that. 6 years. That guy is averaging 6.5 sacks a season for a guy that big. His movement skills were crazy. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler in those 6 years. 2 times second team All-Pro and 1 time first team All-Pro. Unfortunately, he died of left ventricular hypertrophy at the age of 41. So rest in peace to our guy, Chester McGlockton. Now, playing next to him on the defensive lines in heaven is my man, Darrell Russell. Darrell Russell, we all know that he was a troubled individual. But man, can that boy play some football. In 5 years, and we know it was a short-lived career because due to repeated suspensions due to drug use, being kicked out of the league for over a year, constant other suspensions, we know his career was short. But just like a shooting star across the sky, it was a beautiful. Didn't last long, but beautiful. In the 5 years, he had 28 and a half sacks, 2-time Pro Bowler, 1-time second team All-Pro, 1 time first team All-Pro. Unfortunately, as we all know, and sadly, he died in a car crash at age 29. But I would like to believe those 2 guys are making sure that ain't nobody running up the middle in heaven, because they're sacking some quarterback back there. Hopefully it's not the guy Kenny the Snake Stabler, but they're having a hell of a game somewhere up in heaven with those 2 defensive tackles. Let's move on to the middle of our defense, our linebackers. Now, linebackers were very interesting because we have so many great ones, but a lot of them don't play off-ball linebackers. So we're going to start with our first alternate, Rod Martin. Rod Martin, another great Raider, played for 12 years in the silver and black. Now, when he played, they actually did not track tackles as a statistic. So no one knows how many tackles this guy actually had. But he did have 4 interceptions, 10 fumble recoveries, 2 of which for defensive touchdowns. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler, 1-time second team All-Pro, 1-time first team All-Pro, and a 2-time Super Bowl champ with the Oakland Raiders. So let's take our hats off to Rod Martin. He had a great career. Unfortunately, just wasn't good enough to make the cut here. So let's talk about who our linebackers actually were. Starting at our outside linebackers, we got Ted Hendricks, we got Khalil Mack, and inside we got Phil Villapiano. Let's start with the Mad Stork himself, Hall of Famer, Ted Hendricks. This guy, we traded 2 first-round picks to get this guy from Green Bay, from the Packers. And I know most of you guys may look back and say, hey, well, he played for the Baltimore. Well, yes, but Baltimore actually went to the Packers and was traded from the Packers, not even though a lot of success he had was with the Baltimore Colts. But even after that great success with the Baltimore Colts, he had a 9-year career with the Raiders, accumulating 42 sacks, was a 4-time Pro Bowler, one-time second team All-Pro, and a 2-time first team All-Pro. Oh, and did I mention that he's also a 2-time Super Bowl champ? The Mad Stork makes the cut, and he's causing drama in the backfield for all opposing quarterbacks. Let's hop to in the middle of the field. Phil Villapiano. Now, this 9-year Raider also a lot of times overlooked. But in his 9 years with the Raiders as a linebacker, he had 11 interceptions. Pretty solid for a linebacker. 18 fumble recoveries. 18, that's a lot. Some teams don't have 18 fumble recoveries over a course of many years. And 1 defensive touchdown. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time second team All-Pro, and 1-time Super Bowl champ. How can we not put this guy on our defense? And lastly, this guy, I know a lot of you guys may think I'm cheating a little bit, and Khalil Mack, putting him at linebacker. But let's be honest, this guy could play anywhere you want to and be an All-Pro. In the 4 years with the Raiders, an unfortunate only 4 years. I know if you were anything like I am, you were crying your eyes out when you heard the trade, Khalil Mack to the Bears. I'm a huge John Gruden fan, and I was about to put a hit out on John Gruden for trading Khalil Mack. I had to be walked off the ledge. I was about to just end it all. But I want to give flowers to Khalil Mack in the short career he had as a Raider. In the 4 years with the Raiders, he had 40.5 sacks, 9 forced fumbles, 1 defensive touchdown. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first team All-Pro, and 1-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's also the only player in NFL history to ever be first team All-Pro at 2 separate positions in the same year. He was first team All-Pro at defensive end and first team All-Pro at linebacker. So on this loaded defensive team, he's playing outside linebacker for the Raiders. Let's move into the secondary. Now, this was the toughest group that I could ever imagine. You have no idea how many great cornerbacks the Raiders have had in their history. So we're going to start with the alternates. The first alternate we're going to talk about, Mike Haynes and Nnamdi Asomugha. Now, I know it sounds crazy. We're talking about Mike Haynes, who is a Hall of Famer, gold jacket, but he's not good enough to start on the all-time Raiders defense. A Hall of Famer, not good enough to start on the all-time Raider defense. So, but let's talk about why. Mike Haynes, we know that he had a great career with the Patriots before being traded to the Raiders. But he did play 7 years with the Raider in that silver and black uniform. 17 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, Defensive Player of the Year in 1980, 1-time Super Bowl champ, and he's on the Hall of Fame All-80s team. And by the way, did I mention he has a gold jacket? That's a heck of a resume, but not good enough when you play for the silver and black. It's not good enough to just be a Hall of Famer. You got to be a spectacular Hall of Famer to make this roster. The next guy I want to talk about, who's also in as an alternate, is my man Nnamdi Asomugha. Now, Nnamdi, as you guys all know, was a great Raider. He doesn't put up the many numbers as some of these other guys we're going to talk about, but a lot of that's because he was so good that people were afraid of him. People were afraid to throw the ball towards him. We're talking about a guy who was thought of as a reach in the draft, a guy that some people thought should have been a 4th or 5th round pick. And now David said, nope, this guy is a 1st round pick. And everyone looked at him and said, Al has lost it. And he might have, but not for this pick, because this guy was terrific. In his 8 years with the Raiders, he only had 11 interceptions and 1 touchdown, but he was a 3-time Pro Bowler, a 2-time first team All-Pro, and a 2-time second team All-Pro. Not bad for a guy that no one thought was good enough to be picked in the first round. Now let's talk about who did make the cut. Who did make this team? Well, I'm going to go with the Raider GOATs at cornerback are Willie Brown, Old Man Willie, and Lester Hayes. Now, these guys were some great players. Start with Willie Brown. Willie Brown, Mr. Raider. This guy, 12-year Raider, had 40 interceptions, 3 touchdowns off of their picks, one of which was in the Super Bowl. And in that Super Bowl, he took it back, and you hear the announcer says, "Old Man Willie going down the sideline," as he ran it in for our first Super Bowl victory in the NFL history. He also was a 7-time Pro Bowler, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 4-time first-team All-Pro, Defensive Player of the Year, and a 1-time Super Bowl champ, and added to the All-70s Hall of Fame team. Now, that's a heck of a resume. Now, let's talk about this guy, Lester Hayes. How this guy does not make the cut, how this guy does not become a Hall of Famer, shocks me. I don't know how this guy does not have a gold jacket. It is a crime. Whoever is making the decisions, they should all be thrown in jail, because this guy doesn't have if you don't agree that this guy deserves a gold jacket after I tell you everything he's done, then you're crazy. Lester Hayes, in his tenure with the Raiders, 39 interceptions, 4 touchdowns of those 39, 7 fumble recoveries, 5-time Pro Bowler, 1-time second-team All-Pro, 1-time first-team All-Pro, Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time Super Bowl champ, all 80s Hall of Fame team, but somehow not good enough to make the Hall of Fame. Go figure. Hopefully they correct that sooner or later and get this guy a gold jacket. But until then, he's on the All Raiders defensive team. Let's go to our last spots, the safety, the backbone of that defense. Now, starting with our alternate. Our alternate is George Atkinson. Now, George Atkinson, what a great player he was. He spent 10 years of his career in a silver and black, had 30 interceptions at safety. 4 of them were defensive touchdowns, was a 2-time Pro Bowler, 12 forced fumbles, 12 fumble recoveries, 1-time Super Bowl champ, and was Defensive Rookie of the Year in 1968. Another great resume, but not good enough, George, to make this roster. Not good enough. So let's talk about who did make the cut. The GOATs at safety for the Raiders: Jack Tatum, the assassin, and Charles Woodson. Jack Tatum, the assassin, and I'm sorry, you should just make the Hall of Fame. You should just make the Raider all-time defensive team just for having the nickname the assassin. Come on, the assassin. This dude deserved to make this team. Now, we know him because he was just straight cracking heads out there. We've seen him lay people out and have to be pulled out on stretchers. We've seen some nasty hits from him. We know some stuff that would not be legal in today's game. We know he may have had some hits that he probably should have been arrested. The police should have came onto the field, handcuffed this guy, and took him right to jail, because it was straight assault and battery what he's doing to these guys on the field. Hence why his name was the assassin, because he was just straight murking cats out here. But on top of that, in his 9-year career, he also had 30 interceptions. 30. He had 8 fumble recoveries, 3 forced fumbles. He's a Super Bowl champ, and he's one time was on the second team All-Pro. This guy was a stud and lethal. On to the last guy we'll talk about, and probably my favorite Raider of all time, Charles Woodson. Now, this guy doesn't just only make a really good whiskey. He doesn't only make some great wine. This guy could play some football. We all know before he got to the Raiders, he was a Heisman Trophy winner at Michigan. We know that. We know that he had a great stint in the Packers, but we're not talking about anything he's done with another team. We're talking about greatest Raiders. So let's focus only on his Raiders production. 11 years in the silver and black, 27 interceptions, 3 defensive touchdowns, 9 sacks, 18 forced fumbles, 12 fumble recoveries, 5-time Pro Bowler. Unfortunately, he was a Super Bowl champ with the Green Bay Packers, so we're not going to worry about that. But he was also with the silver and black a two-time second-team All-Pro, 1-time first-team All-Pro, and Defensive Rookie Year in 1998. Charles Woodson, ladies and gentlemen. That finishes up our roster. So, in recap, we have our defensive ends are Greg Townsend and Howie Long. Defensive tackles, Chester McLaughlin and Darrell Russell. Linebackers, the Mad Stork, the Mad Stork, Phil Villapiano, and Khalil Mack. At cornerbacks, Willie Brown and Lester Hayes. And at safety, Charles Woodson and Jack Tatum. Put in the comments what you think about this defensive lineman. And I challenge anybody from any other team to come up with a better defensive team from their own personal squad. And you can try as you may, but it's not happening. Silver and black, smash that like and subscribe button. Thank you for your time. Go Raiders, just win, baby.